Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that by far, one of the major reasons as to why a lot of Star Wars fans out there are very much excited about the future of the Star Wars franchise is the fact that we have George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni all working together as a team to deliver as much authentic Star Wars material as possible by Disney, Lucasfilm, Bob Iger, Bob Chapek, you name it. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Disney Star Wars is that yes, we do know that they are now currently on the road to success when it comes to this new universe. Essentially, what they want to do is that they really want to make Star Wars as successful as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that, like I've said before in the past, it's going to take a lot of time and effort and a high success rate to really get it to such a level. Now, when we go ahead and examine the Star Wars universe, this is going to be a mixture of TV shows, movies, books, novels, comics, video games, and so on and so forth. That's really all going to come together to make it bigger, if not more successful, than the old expanded universe by Lucasfilm back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Do I think that they're going to really surpass everything related to the old expanded universe? I'm not so quite sure about that, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, the thing about George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni working together as a team is that we also know that they are working with new creators coming on board to handle this new universe. Essentially, what they really want to do is that they really want to make a lot of A-list actors and actresses come on board for the new Star Wars movies and even new Star Wars TV shows out there. That's really going to be quite impressive to the Star Wars fandom. So, with that being said, of course, what's really intriguing all has to do with actor Mark Hamill and Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy. Now, with the Skywalker saga now over, both Disney and Lucasfilm have been developing multiple plans in order to reunite the Star Wars fandom around the globe. It's noted that Bob Iger and Bob Chapek are hard at work with Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni in order to make the franchise into having a brighter and better future for the fans to experience. Now, it's described that behind the scenes, many changes are being applied over at Lucasfilm. However, during and after the premiere of The Rise of Skywalker, many interviews were given to the actors and the creators of the sequel trilogy and more. And of course, during all of this, it gave the fans a better perspective on things that happened behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm. Now, this all sometime after Episode 9's release, Mark Hamill was able to unveil to the fans that Lucasfilm wanted little to nothing to do with the character of Luke Skywalker and purposely made him an insignificant character in the franchise. Mark Hamill went on to state that the creators of the sequel trilogy and the creatives over at Lucasfilm intentionally wanted to take Luke out of the limelight after George Lucas's proposal of making Luke a significant character of the franchise. Hamill reveals that Lucasfilm had no problem ignoring essentially George Lucas's suggestions for Luke Skywalker being, of course, the franchise in a significant matter, and that Hamill agrees that Lucasfilm mishandled the Star Wars franchise and that they missed out on so many once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for the fans to enjoy. Now, Mark Hamill continues to state that originally Luke Skywalker was going to be a major character in The Force Awakens, and would have even been a major character in The Force Awakens, more so than how he was in The Last Jedi, in the beginning of the film, all the way until the very end. So, once again, guys, let's stop right here for a second, is that this just once again proves that in the very beginning, Kathleen Kennedy was at least somewhat in line with George Lucas and allowing him to do what he wanted to do with the sequel trilogy by allowing, Luke Skywalker to be the main focus point in Episode 7 and throughout the entire film. And that in and on itself, I think, would have actually saved the entire sequel trilogy to actually have Luke be more prominent in the very beginning to start with, right? So, moving on from all of this, this was prior to when, of course, all prior to when Kathleen Kennedy decided to nix that idea, and eventually the creators at Lucasfilm agreed to stay away from using Luke, where Hamill reveals that he was very angry and very frustrated with how Lucasfilm agreed to stay away from using Luke in the movies, for the most part, right? Hamill reveals that he was very much let down after going through the script of Episode 7 and seeing that he only had a 1-minute part in the movie, and that he was also given treatments by Lucas for Episode 7 that involved more action for Luke in Episode 7, The Force Awakens, that were deleted by Lucasfilm since they wanted to push their narrative of using the next generation as front and center, while the original cast, such as, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, and Mark Hamill, being used as a battery, in a sense, for the sequel trilogy movies. Now, Mark Hamill reveals that he actually had many nights where he regretted signing on for the sequel trilogy, since his role while filming Episode 7 was very mysterious. Hamill also continues to state that he and Colin Trevorrow had great ideas that were going to be more in line with Star Wars Legends, and that Colin Trevorrow's version of Episode 9 was modeled more so for the hardcore fans. So, once again, guys, this is a prime example, alright, that Colin Trevorrow's version of Episode 9, in case you guys did not know, it is dubbed Duel of the Fates. His version of the movie was going to be more geared toward the character of Luke Skywalker. Now, before Colin Trevorrow was fired, he was really going to introduce a lot of flashback sequences of Luke in a different way than what J.J. Abrams originally was going to do, and that Mark Hamill was 100% on board with what Colin Trevorrow was doing there. Now, this is all before Kathleen Kennedy decided to erase all of Colin's work and hand it all over to J.J. Abrams. Essentially, she viewed J.J. Abrams as, the savior of the sequel trilogy, given that they had a lot of issues with The Last Jedi, and they, pretty much needed somebody that started it all. They needed the person that started everything from the very beginning. Now, when we think about it this way, Kathleen Kennedy, regardless, she always had issues with George Lucas's proposals, right? He is the one who handed her treatments of Episodes 7, 8, and 9, and eventually, disagreed on those ideas. Mark Hamill has no problem, with making it very clear that he had issues with the actual sequel trilogy movies, especially with The Last Jedi. Now, moving on from all of this, alright? Now, the thing that really gets me is that Hamill worked very hard with Trevorrow on the original version of Episode 9's script and describes that it even made him teary-eyed in multiple segments. Hamill blames Lucasfilm for missing the chance to reunite all 4 original trilogy characters, and then Hamill says that Lucasfilm was too blind to realize that this is what the fans wanted to see on the big screen. Now that the opportunity has been missed, Hamill reveals that he doesn't have all that much of an interest in Disney Star Wars anymore, but is still on board if something unique comes along his way by Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni, and stuff like that. So, when you think about it like that, right? Here we have Mark Hamill. It's pretty much no different than what Daisy Ridley unveiled a couple of days ago, how John Boyega has been more vocal about Star Wars. A lot of things are happening with Star Wars right now. And we can see that, Kathleen Kennedy, given that she is now out of the picture, and how a lot of fans out there are seeing a brighter future for Star Wars, I think that we really are now in the transitionary phase, where we can actually see things, shaping up. This is definitely a shaping up period where we have, the new TV shows, the new movies coming out in the next couple of years. It's really going to be quite something, I believe, at least. The other thing that's very important that I think a lot of fans need to know is the fact that Mark Hamill was really going to have a bigger role in the sequel trilogy before Kathleen Kennedy decided to turn against George Lucas. I mean, I can only imagine what it would have been like if Mark Hamill was more in line with The Force Awakens, was more involved with The Force Awakens to start things off on a more strong note, right? Now, given that, yes, I didn't have all that much of an issue finding out that Luke was only in it for 1 minute, give or take, in Episode 7, but there's no doubt about it that there was a big letdown among the Star Wars fandom of witnessing that Luke really was not all that prominent in The Force Awakens, and just waiting and waiting and waiting to see Luke, only to have him appear with no dialogue even at the very end of the movie. So with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one. From night to moon, we hear their moans again.